Thank you so much for being. Okay, before we call the roll, I would like to invite the interpreters to introduce themselves in their languages. Can I please have the Bangla interpreter first?
সবাইকে শুভ সন্ধ্যা। আজকের এই মিটিং এ আপনারা যদি আজকের মিটিংটি বাংলায় শুনতে চান সেক্ষেত্রে আপনার ফোন থেকে ডায়াল করবেন 347-966-4114 এবং পিন চাইলে 491-328-082 এবং হ্যাশ চাপবেন। আমি আবারও বলছি, ডায়াল করবেন 347-966-4114 এবং পিন চাইলে দিতে হবে 491-328-082 এবং হ্যাশ। সবাইকে ধন্যবাদ। আপনার যদি কোনো প্রশ্ন থাকে আমাদেরকে প্রশ্ন করতে, বাকিটা সময় অবশ্যই মিউট করে রাখবেন। ধন্যবাদ। থ্যাংক ইউ।
Thank you so much. Now, can I please have the Mandarin interpreter?
Good evening. 本次会议有提供中文普通话翻译，如果有需要中文普通话翻译的家长，请您拨打翻译热线347-966-4114，然后再输入会议的密码641-037-34，再播报一遍。如果需要中文普通话翻译的家长，请您拨打电话347-966-4114，然后输入会议密码641-037-34，谢谢。Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now, can I please have the Spanish interpreter?
Buenas tardes con todos. Si desea acceder a la línea de interpretación en español, el número a marcar es el número 347-966-4114 y la clave a ingresar es el número 626-153-852 seguido de la tecla numeral. Si desea participar o si no está participando, por favor, mantengan los micrófonos de sus celulares y de las computadoras apagados para evitar interferencia de sonido. Repito entonces, el número a marcar es el número 347-966-4114 y la clave es el número 626-153-852 seguido de la tecla numeral. La información está en el chat para su conveniencia también. Gracias.
Thank you so much. And now I'll call the roll since our secretary, Nancy Cruz, is absent tonight. Myself, Nancy Randall, yes, I'm here. Antonio Ferraro has an excused absence. Vanessa Gonzalez has an excused absence. Nancy Cruz has an excused absence. Danelle Duchamny? Here. Leslie King? Here. Hans Arietta? Here. Lauren Barkin? Here. Mamoon Rashid?
Yes.
Danley Vidal?
Here.
Jonathan Davis?
Here.
Yoon Lee? Yoon is not here. We will mark her if she arrives later. All right, now I turn it to Leslie for the public comment protocol.
Tonight's meeting is taking place in person. While business meetings not typically include a public comment period, tonight's meeting does have several. We will take both remote and in-person comments to gather additional feedback from our families and school community members. You may leave your camera on, or for your own privacy, if you prefer, you may use audio only during the comment period or throughout the meeting. The rules of engagement. When you comment, please respect the privacy of others. Please should not include names or of children or staff. Guests who make inappropriate comments will be removed from the meeting. During the public comment period, those attending virtually may raise their hand for comment or indicate in the chat that they would like to speak. Those called upon will be unmuted. If you are attending in person, you must sign the guest attendance sheet and indicate whether you would like to comment. Speakers will be called on one at a time and will be allowed 1 minute each for comment. You will hear many pictures of the allow. It is possible that not every comment or question will be given time. So the best way to get your question answered is always to write to the CEC at 15 at rules.nyc.gov. CEC members will also begin the comment period. Members will be called upon and each permitted 1 2-minute comment or question. If members do not have a comment, they may cede their time to the chair.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear well that segment.
What?
Never mind.
Could you guys hear me?
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
You could hear me when I was talking? Oh, interesting. Huh, okay.
Okay.
Mm, I wonder, I guess I was unmuted when I was speaking.
We could hear you.
So I unmuted myself.
That's fine. We can hear you. I thought you were speaking in the mic,
No, I wasn't speaking to the mic. I was unmuted,
but they heard you.
but they heard me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Next time my computer dies, we'll get it there.
And then click, I'm not a robot. And then
But I only have. Then I plug my. I can plug it in. Yeah. That's why we're recording is progress.
Can you guys hear me?
I know. First time we started. So, you know, we're here.
We should learn.
Yeah.
While we sort out our technical difficulties, I'll share that our Brooklyn PEP member, Justman Lee, reached out to the presidents of CECs in Brooklyn to ask how it's going with our hybrid meetings. And I let her know that we're very fortunate to have a wonderful AA who's been amazing with all of this technology, but we certainly don't have the ability to make it high tech. And so I apologize for our low tech abilities. We would love it if it were possible to do more, but we have a budget that prohibits us from something more extravagant. So bear with us. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Testing. I feel like they
Now I
can.
hear you.
Yeah.
Now I hear you.
Okay. Yeah.
But then can I ask you one quick question? Can I have that Anne have my earphone or no?
I think you can.
Yes.
Yeah.
I hear, yeah. I hear
If
it.
there's a kickback, I guess. Okay.
Since they didn't hear what you said, Leslie, could you please,
Of course.
not go through the whole thing again, but just mention the rules of engagement for how people should ask questions
Okay.
or comment.
Okay, so we're just gonna do the rules of engagement again. When you comment, please respect the privacy of others. Please do not include names of children or staff. Guests who make inappropriate comments will be removed from the meeting. During the public comment period, those attending virtually may raise their hand to comment or indicate in the chat that they would like to speak. Those called upon will be unmuted. If you are attending in person, you must sign the guest attendance sheet and indicate whether you would like to comment. Speakers will be called on one at a time, and we will be allowed 1 minute for each comment. For comment, you only get one comment. We will hear as many speakers as time allows. It is possible that not every comment or question will be given time. So the best way to get in touch, the best way to get your question answers is always to write to the CEC at cec15@schools.nyc.gov. CEC members will also be given a comment period. Members will be called upon and each permitted 1 2-minute comment or question. If members do not have a comment, they may cede their time to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leslie. Okay, so we now turn to our minutes from the August calendar and business meeting, Tuesday, August 29th. Has everyone had a chance to take a look at those minutes? Are there any additions or changes that anyone would like to make to those minutes? So I have a motion to adopt the minutes from the August 29th calendar and business meeting.
I motion.
Donalda motion, Leslie seconded. All right, the minutes are adopted. Thank you so much. And now we will turn to a post-storm Ophelia discussion. And we have our superintendents here to discuss with us what are some things what are the experiences that people had, as well as what we can do, potentially writing a resolution, something proactive to help the city improve the situation for our kids.
Hi, thank you, Nancy. Can everyone hear me? I gotta use my voice as much as I have. Hi, can everyone hear?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so during Ophelia, or the flooding that happened on the Friday, September 29th, we had 22 of 42 sites. So roughly a little bit less than half of our sites had flooding issues. We had 77.8% attendance on that day. As a result of that, we had schools collapse some classes. As a district, we used our district point model, where every district team member has around 2 to 3 schools to communicate. We quickly were able to have a spreadsheet that shared what were the outstanding issues, what was happening and how they're being resolved. So we were in constant communication with our school leaders around what to do and how to handle situations. As a result of that, we were working in partnership with Meredith Seeley from Food Services, as well as Carmine Franchese, which is the DSF, to ensure that we were getting water pumped out in any of the schools that we had issues. All students were dismissed in timely fashion. I think our last school was MS 88, where the last dismissal happened around 6:05 p.m., 6:05, 6:08 p.m. All students made it home safely. The EOC, which is the Emergency Operations Center, it actually is housed here at 131 Livingston, was sending constant communication on the progress of our schools throughout. So as things were being addressed and handled, we were being notified. But as quickly as some things were being addressed and handled, another thing might have come up. Yeah, that's okay. Some of the things that were happening due to the flooding were external, not necessarily in schools. For example, at 3 sites outside, there were manholes that went because of transformers. FDNYs were dispatched. Those schools handled those particular situations in partnership with FDNY, as well as activating their BRT teams. And as of right now, there's only 1 issue left in one of our schools. One was resolved today, which is 321, where the boiler, both boilers went down as a result of the flooding. 1 boiler is finally up. The second one is expected to be up by tomorrow, as the mechanics and technicians are working to finalize placing the parts on the boiler. So that should be expected to be completed tomorrow. Outside of that, I'm here to answer any questions that I can.
Okay.
Okay, great. Does Leslie turn it to you?
Yes. I'm having a little bit of an issue hearing, so if you could tell me if somebody wants to, I'm going to open it up to, do we do it online first? I'm going to open it up to our guests online. If anybody has any questions, you can raise your hand. You can also put questions or comments in the chat if you prefer. Okay.
And the interpretation, you can ask. the
Mhm.
interpretation.
I'd also like to ask our interpreters if they have any, if anyone they're interpreting for have questions.
No question in Spanish line.
No question from Mandarin line.
No question in Bangla line as well.
I'm not able to hear them because
Oh,
I
right.
can't hear the,
I said no question.
no
Okay, great.
questions. Okay.
Antonia has a
Antonia?
question, but let's just do Antonia through the roll call.
Okay. I'm gonna open it up to our guests here. Anybody have a question? Okay. I'm gonna take a roll call. One second.
I have a question.
One sec. Okay, Nancy Randall.
I think one of the things we had, obviously, you know, but I'll share with everybody, we had a meeting that morning for the diversity plan. And I think that none of us realized just the gravity of the situation, right? So it all escalated so quickly. I think that escalation, I don't know if that was something that the mayor's office could have known in advance. But I feel like it would have been great if they had known in advance, if there had been more awareness earlier. I was certainly not monitoring the weather, but I'm assuming that people at the mayor's office do monitor the weather. So it feels like it really would have been a great decision to have shut schools that day. And I'm not sure what happens the next time something suddenly happens like this, but it just feels like, you know, the decision was definitely, it was just not the right decision. I know a lot of people went through just very challenging conditions in order to get to school, get to work. And so I'm ultimately disappointed with the way that it was handled. So I just wanted to share that.
Okay, thank you. Antonia?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, Raphael. I know you guys were going crazy on that day with all the schools. But I have to concur with Nancy. When I woke up and I saw the sheets of rain coming down, I really was looking for guidance from the city about whether it was appropriate to send my child to school. I think that I really made a mistake that day in sending my child to school. I think that we need some sort of formula for, you know, X amount of inches of rain in so many hours is like an automatic school closure. I mean, I've read that 1 inch of rain in a certain time period is equivalent to a foot of snow. And we don't have snow days anymore. We really haven't had a good snowstorm in a long time. The reality is we're going to be getting a lot of rain. And so we need to create some protocols around that. And I'm sorry if I missed the answer to this question earlier. Did you say how many schools had flooding already?
Yes, there were 22 schools.
22 schools.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
There were 22 schools in total. Antonia, I do know that the chancellor put out a statement about the mishap and miscommunications that may have occurred. I know that since then, Emma Videra, who is the Deputy Chancellor of Operations, has since been sending out notifications when there is any forms of weather going forward. Today, superintendents and deputy superintendents met with Maury DeGopia, who's in charge of the Emergency Operations Center, which is housed here at 131 Livingston on the 6th floor. And she went through the protocols of the different levels, 0 through 5, meaning escalations of issues that are going on. I think superintendents and deputy superintendents and our system is a little better prepared as a result of this particular incident. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Donalda Chumney.
Being familiar with the shelter-in protocols as we are,
Mhm.
I guess my question is really about communication. Where exactly would you pin the breakdown in communication between principals, the district office, and central, and then on that Friday? And then where would you pin the breakdown in communication now regarding repairing classrooms and getting supplies out to teachers who are tweeting that their classrooms were flooded with sewage water?
Okay.
And that the supplies have not yet been given to them and that their pre-K kids are in classes that have not been properly sanitized.
So there's just 3 separate questions. I'll go through each one accordingly. The first one, where the breakdown was, I would imagine that the breakdown was between district and central. But I can say that what we had done as a district was addressing the schools. And as a responsibility of the superintendent, it's my job to address the schools directly. So I was doing that, not I, but our entire team was doing that from 5 o'clock in the morning. Many of us were getting phone calls. We were already dispatching our entire team to address the schools that they're connected as district points. So in a sense, we had constant, clear communication with our school leaders, as well as DSF, which are the counterparts that help with school facilities, as well as our food services to ensure children had lunches and meals. You would imagine several schools across the city, about 1,600 buildings, there was a lot of flooding across the city. And so what we were doing was managing what was going on in our district. And I think that we did a fairly decent job with what we were faced with. It wasn't easy. It was difficult. There was damage in particular buildings. My job after that Friday was actually working on Saturday and Sunday, ensuring that our schools were ready and prepared for Monday in terms of cleaning, any type of sanitation, sanitizing the school. We had, for example, MS 151 had a leak in the roof that was repaired as an emergency. So we did our due diligence of creating, as a district, we created Google spreadsheet that allowed us to put information in real time. And as one superintendent of 40 schools, it's difficult for me to be able to communicate with every single one. So we had our district points communicate. I think that the breakdown came where the city probably got overwhelmed with the number of schools that we were dealing with. And so district superintendents were dealing with their schools accordingly. And I think that we did a fairly decent job under the conditions we were in. So that's the first question. Donalda, can you remind me of the second one? Because I know the 3 parts.
Where's the communication breakdown between teachers who don't have the supplies that they need,
Yeah.
or the classroom damaged with sewage?
Yeah.
And say, like, we have a Superfund site that overflowed into several of our schools.
Yeah, so the issue with the breakdown has to do with the breakdown at the school level. So there's as you know, as a superintendent, things go from the teacher to the administration of the school. If the administration is not sharing and we're not fully aware of what the teacher is saying specifically about individual instances, then it's hard for us to really understand what is going on. We rely on the principals to share that information with us as superintendents. The moment things are brought to my attention, we are addressing. So there have been schools, for example, 321, as I shared with the boiler, that has gotten cleared. I know that Brooklyn Arts High School, for example, had some flooding in the basement that damaged some equipment. DSF is in the process of working on trying to get their materials back to the particular school. But the only way I know is not through a tweet or through social media, but the schools have to formally share that information so that we can then share with our counterparts who are responsible for taking care of those things. As a superintendent, we really deal with the whole district, but we have different partnerships, and it's very weird in New York City where I'm not in charge of Division of School Facilities. I'm not in charge of food services. I work in partnership with them to support our district. So we worked with Meredith Seeley on the day that we knew that food was going to be an issue, and we made sure that all of our schools had food. When it came to breakdown in terms of materials for particular schools, we knew of the schools that shared. We had videos, we had pictures. All those things were shared with DSF. DSF was expected to enter that into EOC, which then gets recorded into the system, and then the process of fixing and repairing and salvaging what needs to be salvaged. As you would imagine, we have 1,700 schools, so the priority is going to be on those level 5 and 4 and 3 incidences first, as we get into level 2s and 1 and 0 incidences, which is just the severity of the situation. I can't put children in the classroom if the ceiling's falling apart. So that's going to be the #1 priority for a city that's strapped with resources in terms of repairing. So that's, I hope that answers that question to the best we
Thank
can.
you.
Yeah. And then there was a third one.
That's it.
That was it. Okay, that was 2.
It was
And
a
I thought it was
two-part-
3.
it was a two-parter.
Okay, cool.
You got
I
it.
thought it was 3. All right, thanks, Melda.
And I just want to add one.
Yeah,
thing
sure,
to that.
please.
The only school that reported to us materials being damaged at the classroom teacher level was PS10.
Yes.
So based on the data that we collected and the communication we had to get granular in terms of teacher materials. So if there are other schools that you know of that shared that information that didn't get to us, we would want that information. We addressed PS10, but from the information we collected, that's the only one that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
that reported.
And just to be 100% clear on that, because we did thorough information, so it's as more specific than what Deputy Superintendent shared. It was boxes of contents approximately costing $500 that was damaged at that particular school that was reported by the school. So we're in the process of dealing with that specifically. So if that's brought to the attention of administration would then figure out how to either reimburse or replace it depending on what the situation is. But if it's something that's bigger as a result of water coming down and damaging the teacher's desk or materials that a teacher personally bought, that's a whole nother separate entity. That's PS10 really is the only one I was notified outside of Brooklyn
And I'm sure
Arts.
there
High
were
School.
others, and
Yeah.
principals just handled it and didn't
Right.
communicate in their minds the lower level issues when there were massive structural issues happening. So I'm sure we didn't get all of the information.
Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you both. I'm going to cede my time. Next is Hans Ariata. Yes.
Yeah. I have a little issue about this word shelter in place. You know, like I think the authorities are abusing too much of this word. You know, because I mean, like for people of color or immigrants, I mean, I don't know, and people who are born here in this country, like have the kids in the school in the same place, it's fine for people of color or immigrants who live in a constant fear to be away from their families. So it's very issue. So it take our trust away from the authorities, you know, when they use this word. Last year, same thing happened in Sunset Park, like, you know, it was something that was shelter in place. And they didn't even get the guy until the next day. And then they opened the school, you know, like later, like, and then now they come and say, probably was a mistake, I don't know, but I think the authorities are using the word, it had to take it very serious. Like, and when they said like shelter in place, because preparing to go get the kid and be negated, like for the authorities, no, you cannot take kids to stay a kid. I don't see like you know, like a big deal. It was a real shooting, a real active shooting in the front. Of course, yeah, close the door, don't let nobody get in. I understand that, but like little things like that, probably, you know, like also be more aware of the weather. And if we have to just cancel that day, the school because the weather, I think it's better to do it like that. They want to create more trust on the community.
Yes. Thank you, Han.
Thank you.
Lauren Barkin.
I'll see my.
Okay. Mamoon Rashid.
Okay.
Okay. Danley et al. Okay. Jonathan Davis.
So I had 2 things. I want to just first build off of what a lot of my peers have mentioned already about just protocol and awareness of what was going on. I think about all the alerts that I got on my phone from the night before saying, hey, clear all the debris from all of the sewers, and we're anticipating X amount of rain. And I think the way that Antonia described it, of the 1 inch of rain is equivalent to 1 foot of snow. And then I think I got 7 or 8 flash flood notifications starting at 7 a.m. And looking out my window, and I know it. I don't want your job, and I know how difficult this is. But just thinking about what protocols can we have in place to do that? And then I've got a second question.
Yeah, I'll answer the first one. It's kind of difficult to do that. As I stated before, I think in the last meeting, New York City is it's an anomaly. We're a very different structure than most superintendent structures across the country. So what happens here is that, first of all, there's mayoral control. So the mayor makes those final decisions, but we also have a chancellor. The chancellor is the superintendent of New York City, which is one school district to the state. We are community school districts that follow that pattern. So it's a different structure. What I can say is that it was very difficult at the time to try to tell people, no, now stay home at 7 o'clock, when we have half the kids already on buses, parents already on the trains with their kids to drop them off because they have to get to work. So the safest thing at that point was to make sure that kids who did come to school were kept in school. We made it clear and reiterated to our families. I'm sure you heard in the media where schools were already telling parents to come back after they had already left. We made sure that every school was aware. We are not sending children home, and we're going to keep them as long as we have to keep them until the parents are able to come. We did recognize that there was a lot of train interruptions. Schools were making communication with families about how they were going to pick up their children, or what routes children were going to get to go home. We started doing that before communication came down. I know there was a concern about when communication came down, but as superintendent, it's my job to do that. So it's for thinking about what are we going to do as we get to dismissal, right? And so that's what we did. But yeah, yes.
So my second question we haven't discussed yet, and that is the impacts on the families. And so it seems like there's been a pretty good assessment of the needs of the specific schools and the classrooms and the buildings, but what about the families who have been directly impacted by this flooding? People living in homes that have been destroyed, or they've lost so much of their living space, and they have to move to, and so how can we as a district support, figure out first what the needs are, across the different schools, and then support them?
Jonathan, go ahead.
Can I ask you to just
Sure.
repeat what he said? Because I think they can't hear. Online.
Oh, they can't hear me.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, what Jonathan was saying was, it seems like we have a better assessment of how we're addressing the schools itself, but knowing that schools are part of a larger community that deals with the members at large that live in the community, how are we as a district, or as a district community, making sure that we're taking into consideration what the families in our district are going through, and how are we supporting them through that process? Is that correct, Jonathan? And assessing what their needs are, right? So what I'm going to start off by saying is I 100% agree with you, Jonathan. To be honest with you, we have always left that to the schools to do. But I think you bring up a great point, in that as a district, we can do something as well. The same way that we were able to quickly collect information for all of our individual schools to support in terms of what was going on with the flooding, the needs, and what was the outcomes, I think is something that we could have been doing with checking with each individual school. We have always left that to the schools because they're the individual families and the relationships. But I think that from a district perspective, it would help for us to know that maybe a neighboring school didn't have as much flooding, but the one next to it did, and it's impacted some families, and how can we support that? So I take your point. I think it's a valid point. I think it's something that we can work on going forward to ensure that we are collecting that information, recognizing that we do have a lot of families coming into our district that are in temporary housing. How can we address those families, as well as families, for example, in the Wyckoff houses, or in Red Hook, or even in Sunset Park, or even in some areas of Park Slope where there's shelters. Thank you for that point. It's something that we're going to definitely make sure that's part of the assessment in terms of the next time we may have an issue across our district, and it's something that we're probably going to look into now, hopefully to report at CEC as to where we are as a district in terms of need. So thank you for that. Yeah.
Except that no.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Is that everyone?
That's everybody.
Okay, great.
There were some questions.
There's a question.
Oh, there are?
Sarah
Oh,
Graham.
sure. Let me see, hold
Yeah,
on.
we can go back to. the
Oh, but
chat.
we have one person, Sarah
Yeah.
Graham.
Oh, I will.
Yeah.
Hi.
I see the
I
question.
actually put my question in the chat
Yeah.
because it's about 372, which is a joint 75 and 15, and was right by that lovely Gowanus whirlpool. So I was wondering if we were on your list in terms of what needed to be repaired. And then the follow-up question is, once you've done all those repairs, because of the sort of what was in the water, like when you test, you can test for, after the fact, will we be doing any follow-up testing,
So several schools that had these issues had environmental tests, and environmental cleaners actually came externally to actually do the cleaning. That was something that the DOE put in place. As it relates to 372, yes, it was essentially on our list, but I have to tell you, Lassant Kettler and myself, the superintendent for District 75, and I are scheduling a meeting in the next 2 weeks to have discussions about 372/418, because the problem with that is, like, for example, within District 15, I have maybe 4 high school superintendents, Janice Ross, who's Brooklyn North, I have Fred Walsh, who is CUNY, and I forget the other school, and Affinity. We have Alan Chang, who's Consortium, International Baccalaureate. We have Transfer High School's John Sullivan, and then we have Glenda Esperance, who's District 79 for specialized programs, and and Richardson Tron, who's New Vision's high school superintendent. All of them have schools within our district. So they don't necessarily report to me, they report to those superintendents. And so they're not required to have to report to me. 418 is an anomaly in that we tried to coordinate with Mr. Lassant's district and tried to get information. So they are on our radar and we are aware of the damages they had, as Principal Armato definitely sent me the information, and she is one of the 22 schools.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Which school had the most damage?
That's hard to say. It could have been Brooklyn Arts High School from my perspective, where they had a lot of flooding in the basement. So it wasn't damaged as much to the school, but because the basement got a lot of water, there were materials that were stored down there. So that to me is a lot of damage. And then honestly, the second biggest damage in my eyes would have been 321 because of the boiler itself. When you have a boiler that's not working, that's a problem. But fortunately, literally today, this afternoon, one of the boilers was finally fixed because we got the parts, and the second boiler is expected to be completed tomorrow. So those to me were the biggest issues. There was a lot of flooding in cafeterias, basements, and first floors across the district, across schools.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Yeah, with that, that's a segue into the school construction authority capital plan discussion that we're going to have. So you're welcome to stay or not stay.
Well, what would you like? If you want me to stay, I'll be here. If you want me to go, I'll go. Either way.
Oh,
I'll leave it on you. What would you guys like?
Well, I think that it could be helpful if you stayed briefly.
Sure.
Okay. I think there's only one form. And Antonia, can you please feel free to also interject to explain and discuss as well. So there's a sheet that you all have in your folder. And it says at the top, NYC School Construction Authority fiscal year 20 to 24 5-year capital plan, final response to Community Education Council District 15, 21 to 22 requests. So one of the things that over the course of the next month or so, we need to do is discuss with our liaison schools the main issues that they need addressed by the school construction authority. And you should do a tour of the school, and you should also meet with the principal. If you have not already reached out, please do so, reach out to them. And there are certain things that don't fall into the categories of what they will fix. We had Carmine Francesi, who Superintendent Alvarez just mentioned. He had come a few meetings ago to give us an overview of the things that they do and don't. Shanice, Antonio would like if you could save her folder, please.
Save her folder?
It's over here.
Oh,
Just so that she can get it.
okay, later. Okay.
So he mentioned a few different things, but you know, it's a lot of information, right? And when you go on a school tour, they're basically, the principals are going to tell you the issues that they have. And the best thing you can do is really just write down what are the physical issues that the building is having. And then once you get it all down on a sheet of paper, then once we come back together to discuss, then we can figure out whether or not these are things that would fall within the capital plan, and we can put them at the top of the list. Essentially, what Camille has always, the past president, Camille Casretti, what she always did is she sent the list of all the issues, but we ranked them. So there would be the top 5, because we're only really supposed to give them 5. So we give them the top 5, but then we give them everything. And that's one way to just record just the gravity of the issues, right? There's lots of issues. You have a question?
I'm just wondering how we decide the rankings. I feel like we're not necessarily the experts in knowing what, you know, what the greatest needs might be. So I was just curious in the past how those decisions were made.
Usually we discuss, we go through like, there's a spreadsheet that everybody puts in information, and we can send that out in the next few weeks. There's a spreadsheet that everybody puts in the information related to their liaison schools. And then once we come together in December, or let's say December, so that we have the space to move it to January, but we come together in December and we go through it. And I mean, sometimes it's just overwhelmingly obvious, like a certain school just has certain things that are way, you know, just kind of extreme needs that other schools don't have. What I think is disheartening, with all that said, what's disheartening is if you look at this, and if you look at the last column, the final response from the school construction authority is we are unable to prioritize this project at this time. And it's kind of over and over and over again. They are unable to prioritize the project that was stated at the time. And this is for, I don't know, how many schools is this, maybe? Or how many, I think it's 5 things to a page, maybe? How many, this is what, 20 at least, 25? So we could look at this as the glass half full and say that if there are any issues that you go to your liaison school and that issue has not been resolved, then we can yet again put it on the list and highlight it as an issue that is ongoing for whichever school it is in our district. Yes.
What I would also ask is that if there are certain things that you're seeing, that you also take pictures. Nancy's talking about school construction authority, but when you bring stuff back, there might be things that Division of School Facilities can handle or take care of. And so having that information to me helps me work with DSF, and if they're able to do stuff, they'll be able to do a few things. And so at the very least, we'll be adding a little bit more of what needs to get done. The visuals help. So having the pictures would definitely help.
Thank you. And Antonia also, I'm gonna unmute you.
So I just want to go back to what Jonathan was asking earlier about like our process for determining for submitting to SCA. So we have this spreadsheet Every member puts in all of their projects into the spreadsheet. And then we actually send that spreadsheet first to Carmine Francesi, who goes through it and he says, okay, this is a good SCA project. This is something for Division of School Facilities. This is something for maybe a PB project, like a ResOA thing. And then from there, we have a group of SCA capital plan projects. And then we have a meeting in which we kind of discuss them and we vote on our final 5 that we put at the top. And this process is actually can be a longer meeting than it needs to be because everybody is sort of at a loss for which 5 to choose. And I'm really open to suggestions about how we can make that meeting a little bit less difficult. So that's it, Nancy.
Wait, now what do I do? Okay, how about that is, if anybody has any ideas right now, feel free to share them, but if not, it's something that you can think about, especially as you begin your school tours. I think that one of the things that Raphael mentioned, the photos, I remember when I shared photos, there was no central place to share them. So actually that might be something that we consider, is creating a document where we're actually inputting the photos as well. And then we can also send that to Carmine. I think that would be helpful. Certainly just getting the evidence that there are issues that need to be addressed, right? I think is fundamental. And I appreciate that the district is also able to, you know, listen to the information that we give and pass on and try to address that. There's the sheet. Shanice, did you print out the sheet that there's a school tour, a school visit?
No.
I guess it's on here. Do you know the sheet that I'm talking about?
No.
Okay, we'll email that. We do have a school tours sheet that you can take with you when you go on your school tours to help you look more closely at the issues. And it addresses the specific places of the school where you should be looking, certainly cafeteria, gym, bathrooms. So I can send that out. And then Antonia, did you think that it would be helpful for us to go through these descriptions?
I think everybody should just take that list and look up their schools and see what was recommended in the past and what has been accepted as a project. I mean, we don't want to recommend something that has already been accepted. And people should know what projects were recommended and they're not being prioritized at the moment. But I also wanted to talk about what's it called? The DOE school dashboard, and what information is on there that that might be helpful for people as they're going into their meetings with their principals. So would it be okay if I shared my screen? Is that something I can do?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. All right, so. So if you all sort of look up your schools on the DOE website, you'll see all this information. You have sort of your general overview. You have whether the school is accessible. This is PS32, it's fully accessible. It tells you who the school contact information is. And then you have things like building ventilation information and ventilation status. And then you come up here to reports, and you'll have like a complete building accessibility profile. Then you'll go to facilities, and then you'll have a building condition and assessment survey, the BCAS. And you can often get quite a bit of information looking through some of this. Like it tells you what the facility is comprised of. It'll have pictures. It'll talk about certain issues that the schools had in the past. This is talking about, it doesn't have any of these things. It says no, it says priority condition existed last year, no. Priority category, potential falling debris. So there's a lot of information that you can sort of glean from this. And then you can also go back to, go back to the reports, and you have your comprehensive educational plan. And this is something you should look over for each of your schools, especially as you're attending their SLT meetings, so that you know sort of what the goals of the school are. So, you know, use all this information that's just on the DOE website. And then the other thing I'll stop sharing my screen. And the other thing I wanted to talk about is I just want to highlight to please ask about the state of air conditioning in the schools that you're visiting, given the fact that we know that they are not going to be repairing these air conditioners. Ask your schools what grants they've received from the borough president or from the city council, what kind of participatory budgeting grants they have applied for, what projects are in a Reso A phase currently, what kind of projects have been recently completed. One of the questions I always ask our principals is, you know, what are the assets and the challenges of the school? It's sort of an open question. And then you will, you'll just compile a brief report, and we'll have a business meeting, and we'll have an agenda item where CEC members just sort of give their report on their school liaison visits. And then from there, you'll go to your SLT meetings, you'll reach out to your PTA members. and that's really it.
And I would say, sorry. And I would say that we would want to have, ideally, everything, kind of everyone's done their school tours and compiled everything by December. Would you agree with that? Yeah. So between now and December, our December meeting, which I believe is December 12th. Does that sound right? Does anybody know off the top of their head?
It is December 12th.
Okay, so between now and our December 12th meeting, please plan to do your school tours, to go over these questions that Antonia mentioned with the principals. If you can attend an SLT meeting, that would be great. Some schools are still doing them on Zoom. You're not supposed to, but that's okay. You can Zoom in. That's an option. If it's in person, please take the time to get there in person and attend an SLT meeting. And that way you can better understand what are the issues that school is experiencing. And all of this, again, you know, as I mean, it's unfortunate that they can't address all of these issues. However, since they haven't addressed some of these issues, then we can certainly say, hey, this is still a problem at this particular school. This really needs to be addressed. So yes, Mamoon.
If we go to the school, so we should directly talk to the principal and the parents coordinator, probably, right?
If you can make an appointment with the principal to be there, and if the parent coordinator can also be there, and a parent leader, so maybe the PTA president or someone from the school, a parent from the school leadership team. Ideally, there would also be some type of parent leader that you could talk to.
And do they know our name as a liaison? Did you send them to the school? Like, let's
Do you
say,
remember I sent an email and I said for everyone to introduce themselves to their liaison schools?
Okay.
So if you haven't done so, that's not a problem, but then just send an
No,
email.
we did ourselves.
Yes.
But you didn't send it to them.
No.
So they don't know like who is the liaison or anything from the district or from District 15. So we went, like especially me. I went to schools and I introduced myself. I left my name and number. So you know, I'm gonna contact with them.
Yes.
But as I was asking, like you did not send anyone that he is the liaison for this school or this and that from the district 15, not like that. Right?
No.
Oh.
I mean, in the past, I guess we've always left it up to the council member
Okay,
to
that's
reach
fine.
out to the liaison school, as long as you say that you're a council member of District 15 and
Yeah, that's
I mean, of CEC
that I did,
15.
yeah.
Yeah.
That I
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
I did talk to them.
Okay. Okay, great.
And can we make any identity for ourselves to introduce them or?
Yes, you could, and Antonia, I'm going to speak and then unmute. Yes, you could if you wanted to have like there's no longer, I know in the past, there used to be a DOE issued ID card. Is that not the case for CEC members? That is no longer the case as far as I know. If you wanted to make yourself a business card that said Mamoon Rashid, CEC 15, you could do so, but then that would be, you know, that would be, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And Antonia, do you have anything to add?
The question was whether the DOE is issuing DOE identification cards for CEC members. Is that the question?
Mamoon's question was whether there is some type of ID that we can show that we are CEC members.
So when I first became a CEC member, I did have to go to get a DOE ID, but they haven't done that again to my knowledge, and I have lost mine. And so I just use my driver's license. They do, I mean, they're going to ask your driver's license at the door, that, you know, school security will ask for it. That's it. That's all you need to get in the door. You don't need any special identification. But what could be helpful if you feel uncomfortable is, well, first of all, definitely CC Nancy and the official CEC email address with, sorry, echoing. Oh my God. With the communication that you send to the principal so that she knows you're a member of CEC 15, that this, or we could have our AA send the email to the principal as well. Like, I would say reach out to the principal and the parent coordinator on your own first. If you're not getting a response, then our AA will send a follow-up. I think that is probably a good way to do it.
I just have a question on that, because I was wondering what the protocol is if you emailed and followed up and still haven't really heard back. Do you then go to the parent coordinator? Because I was just doing the principal. What have people done in the past other than just show up if you've reached out a few times and haven't heard back, just to make sure that you make that contact?
You can reach out to the parent coordinator.
Okay.
How many people have not heard back? No, have not heard back. Okay, got it. Okay. So, and I'll unmute you in a second, Antonio. So, one of the things is, as Antonio mentioned, you should CC our official CEC email address on every communication. Just, that just adds a level of just making sure that everything is available and being, you can also CC me. Then the next step is you can reach out to the parent coordinator and also reach out to the PTA leadership at the school. You can always call the school, and say, I want CEC 15 and so forth. So those are different ways. If there's, the thing is that I don't have a relationship necessarily with the principals any more than any of us do, if I don't know that principal, right? So oftentimes Superintendent Alvarez is a great connector, right? So if you are having a hard time connecting with a certain principal, you can email the superintendent and the deputy superintendent and ask for them to make the connection. So that's another option. So there's different ways, and Antonia, now I'll unmute you if you want to add.
I think it's a good idea on any communication between a CEC member and a principal that Alvarez is CC'd on. We always CC'd Anita on any communications with a principal in the past, and that sort of, I don't know if it was a rule, I don't know where it came from, or if it was just a courtesy that Anita had asked for, but I think it's probably something that we should bring back.
Any other questions, comments? Okay. All right. Let's move on to reimbursements and individual performance review. So these are the two reimbursement sheets. One is more specific. One has more information than the other. You can fill it out monthly, or you can fill it out like a couple of months at a time. The reimbursement. The reimbursements are, as you see on the sheet that at the top right says member reimbursement request form. It can be for childcare, for driving to, for example, your school visits, parking near your school visits, a car service or a taxi receipt, or if, let's say, you go to a PEP meeting or coming here, anything that is related to your CEC official, functions. I don't know if there would be any reason to have a subscription or a conference fee. That is something that, if it comes up, I would say, please bring it up in advance. And you also can be reimbursed for your internet. I believe it's either $70 or $75 a month. $75 a month. Childcare, you are reimbursed up to $125 a month. However, you're totally reimbursed up to $125 a month. In other words, if you spend $125 on childcare and $75 on your internet, you can only be reimbursed for $125. Does that make sense? Okay. Please, I sign everybody else's, and then Donalda signs mine. I would say the easiest thing is if you take these and then you photocopy them if you can, or we can do more photocopies here, and then that way you just have them to do it by hand every month, and then we can sign it every month, and I can review it and sign it, and it just, however, if you would rather do things electronically, that's okay too. So it's up to you. Are there any questions? Antonia's gone dark, so I don't think she has anything to add. So are there any questions?
The internet just flat. You don't have to write down like the hours.
You don't have to write down the hours. You just have to write down who your service provider is, and that's it. Yeah. Antonia, did you have anything you wanted to add? No. Okay. Childcare, you do actually, yeah, you do have to write where it says childcare providers information. You do need to provide the information for the childcare provider. And so then this goes, so then after I sign it, then I give it to Shanice. Shanice then sends it to, is it Face? That
no, I send it to the SGO. So that would be Linda Perez.
Ah, okay. And then after that, then they complete the reimbursement, and it, it'll take maybe 2 months, 3 months for you to get it check. It is what it is. So keep track of your expenses. If you do end up, I would say the main expense for most people is childcare and internet. If you do end up having, other expenses related to parking or mileage or car service, just make sure you keep those receipts. All right. And then the next thing is the individual performance review, which Camille had been really great about having us do it, and then I would say often everybody kind of fell off, right? Antonia? Yeah. So let's not fall off. Let's do this. So this is, Shanice, you sent out the email last week, was it? I think it
Yeah,
was like the middle of last week.
maybe 2 weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You guys might have seen it. There's basically, you just write in what you did CEC related. So for example, you would put 10:10 CEC business meeting. If you go on a school visit tomorrow, you would put 10:11 school visit 3:21. If you, the next day, if you go to the mayoral town hall, you would put, 10:12 mayoral town hall. So literally that's it. You don't have to go into extensive details about what it is that what's being done at these school visits or at these experiences, whatever. Just put the date and a brief description of what it was. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay, any questions about reimbursements or individual performance review? Actually, I forget who then, Antonio, I'm gonna unmute you. Who then is looking at our individual performance reviews?
Doesn't that just go to the SGO and they use it to sort of validate your reimbursements?
No, the individual performance reviews.
It goes to face. And the PEP, I believe. Let me see, because I sent an email.
Huh.
If it would load.
I thought the IPR was related to the state. And it went to some state related entity.
I don't know, but I think that there have been times when we couldn't get certain funds because we had to submit an IPR. Yeah, well, I don't know.
Did you hear Antonia?
No, what did she say?
She was talking.
Oh.
I didn't.
I just recall in the past there might have been an instance where we couldn't spend certain monies without submitting an IPR. It's very vague to me. I was never the treasurer, so I'm not exactly sure. I'm sorry, I can't be more helpful.
That's not it.
No.
If nothing else, just for us to have oversight of ourselves. Okay, so 1 minute early, we're moving on.
Do you want to talk about the Google Docs?
Talk about the Google Docs.
Which Google Doc?
Just the fact that we have them. I'm always I'm a little bit worried that the other council members are not sort of sure about the Google Drive, how to access it.
Everything is in Google. Yeah.
Does everybody know how to get access to the Google Drive and understand that, like, all the resolutions, all the minutes, all the agendas, all the IPRs are in there? You can just look things up by the date, and they're very, very, very easy to find. Is anybody perplexed by it?
Are you volunteering? Creating a folder?
You want me?
Antonio, how do you feel about that?
I don't know what he said. I didn't hear him.
I can't.
Jonathan has just
So that means
volunteered
that I
himself.
can't do it. I can't hear Antonio now. So,
Jonathan has just volunteered himself to create some folders in the Google Docs. How do you feel about
Oh, as long as I can find it. That's fine.
that? What did she say?
I just
As long as I can find it.
I just look it up by year, or I put in a keyword. I put in like agenda 2023 or minutes 2023, and it just pops up. But yes, yeah, anything you can do to organize would be good.
I think that's a great idea. Yeah. Yeah. We have the script also of every meeting is in there. So really, everything is in there well before it's sent out to the public. So you can really see everything in advance. And so all of these documents also, right? The IPR documents, like all of these things are in the Google Docs as well.
Right. So the IPR goes to FACE and then it goes to PEP for review.
Oh,
Yeah.
huh.
So I guess to make sure you guys are doing it.
That's interesting. Oh, did you guys hear that? So Shanice just said that the IPR, it goes to FACE, and then after it goes to FACE, it goes to the PEP for them to review it. I didn't realize the PEP reviewed CEC members' performance reviews. So I think that's interesting. Okay, so that's where it all goes. All right. 7:48, so now we're 3 minutes over. So we're moving on to our resolutions, and we're voting on the resolution to support students with personal information compromised in the June 2023 data breach. I believe we've already read this resolution 2 times, so I would say we don't need to read it again, but we can open it to public comment. So I'll turn it to you, Leslie.
Okay. I'm going to ask everyone on the Zoom, if you have any questions, you can raise your hand or you can put a comment in the chat. I'd also ask our interpreters if you have anyone that has questions.
No question Spanish line.
Thank you.
No questions on the mention line.
No question in mine as well.
Thank you. Let's see. And then I'm going to open it up to our Nancy.
I have no comment.
Okay. Donalda.
Yes.
We're not voting.
Oh, do you have any comment? You don't have any questions or comments? do you?
No. I don't. I just hope it passes. It seems important. And thanks everybody for your help doing it. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Lauren. I'm here. Jonathan? No? Okay, great. I do too.
Okay, so
Okay.
now we vote. So I will call the roll. Second. All right, so on the resolution to support students with personal information compromised in the June 2023 data breach. I vote yes.
Is there a motion?
Donalda?
Yes.
Oh, Antonio just said, is there a motion?
Oh, Jesus. Thank you. Thank you,
move to
Antonio.
vote on this
Thank you.
resolution.
Thank you. Thank you, Jonathan. Is there a second? Wonderful. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you. All right. Now I vote. So I normally don't do the vote. All right. I vote yes. Donalda?
Yes.
Leslie?
Yes.
Hans?
Yes.
Lauren?
Yes.
Mamoon,
Yes.
Danley,
Yeah.
Jonathan?
Yes.
Okay, great. The resolution passes. Thank you so much, Fernando, for your work on this.
Yay.
All right, next on the agenda, we have the resolution to uphold 2022 high school admissions rules. Antonia, who authored this resolution, of course, is not here to be able to vote. Antonia, would you like to make any comments?
Sure. I'm really sorry that that I can't be there to vote tonight. I really wish I could vote on this resolution. I will just say that we probably should read it. No, I mean it's been a while. We didn't. I don't believe we solicited public comment on it. I kind of think we have to read through it.
Yes.
Okay, do you want me to? I think somebody else needs to read it because I'm not sure that the public can hear me.
Yeah. I'm gonna mute you.
Who would like to read the resolution? Lauren, will you kindly read the resolution? Is it as long as? Okay. Okay. Should I just start? Okay. CEC 15, resolution to uphold 2022 high school admissions rules for the fall 2024 enrollment period and conduct an impact analysis. Whereas the New York City Department of Education enacted a series of admissions changes for entry to New York City public high schools between 2020 and 2022. Whereas in 2020, use of selection criteria such as state tests, punctuality, district priority, and attendance were prohibited. Whereas selection criteria used by the majority of screened high school programs was standardized to ensure transparency on the rubric used to sort student applicants. Whereas the most recent changes were announced by Chancellor David C. Banks on September 29th, 2022, for the enrollment period commencing in fall of 2023. Whereas a centralized ranking process utilizing the same selection criteria emerged to admit students applying to screened New York City public high schools that do not have their own school-based assessment. Whereas, according to the press release, schools will admit the top performing applicants from across each middle school and citywide. Applicants to screened high schools will be in groups based on their final 7th grade core course grades. Students will be admitted to screened programs in group order, starting with students in group 1. If all students in group 1 have been accommodated, students in group 2 will then be considered for available seats, and so on. Students will be in group 1 if the average of their final 7th grade core course grades falls in the highest 15% of their school or citywide, and that average is at least a 90. Students will be in group 2 if they are not in group 1 and the average falls in the highest 30% of their school or citywide, and that average is at least an 80. Students will be in group 3 if they are not in groups 1 or 2, and the average falls in the highest 50% of their school or citywide, and that average is at least a 70. School students will be in group 4 if they are not in groups 1, 2, or 3, and their average falls in the highest 70% of their school or citywide, and that average is at least a 65. All other students will be in group 5. Whereas an applicant must have average core course grades of at least 94.33% to meet the citywide threshold for group 1, 90.25% for group 2, 83.5% for group 3, and 76.75% for group 4. Whereas also the press release announced additional changes, including earlier application timelines, earlier offers. The New York City DOE would begin middle and high school application timelines earlier in the fall on October 12th for high schools and October 26th for middle schools.
so that offers could be released in March for high schools and in April for middle schools. Additionally, the New York City DOE would release high school offers together with any specialized high school results in one offer letter. Central open house calendar. The New York City DOE would launch an events calendar in My Schools so that families could find all admissions events and school open houses and tour information in one place. Clearer admissions information. New York City DOE would share the number of waitlist offers a program has made in the past so families can better assess their chances of receiving an offer through the waitlist process. Improved virtual audition experience. The virtual audition and additional material submission experience would include clearer instructions and submission confirmation. School day SHSAT administration. New York City DOE would continue to enable 8th graders in public schools to take the SHSAT during the school day at their current school rather than traveling to sites on the weekend. Waitlist extended. New York City DOE would extend middle and high school waitlists to mid-September in order to fill any seats that become available after the start of the school year fairly and transparently. Whereas this admission process resulted in 75% of students receiving an offer to one of their top 3 choices and 95% of students receiving an offer at one of the 12 schools selected on their application. Whereas compared to the prior year, enrollment period 2022, fewer students received an auto match to a school to which they did not apply. Approximately 5,800 students received an auto match. They were matched with a school they did not apply to, compared to approximately 6,700 last year, 2022. Among the 5,800, 2,000 were non-applicants, those who did not submit an application, and approximately 460 were private school students, meaning only approximately 3,360 public school applicants are receiving an auto match. On average, these students tended to list fewer application choices. Approximately 60% of them listed 6 or fewer choices. Whereas admissions changes since 2020 produced modest increases in the number of low-income students receiving offers to screened high schools. Whereas according to the UCLA Civil Rights Project's New York City School Segregation Report Card, New York State still holds the distinction of being the most segregated state for Black students and the second most segregated for Latino students. This outcome is driven by New York City, as it is the largest school district in the state and nation, educating approximately 40% of New York State children. Whereas since 2010, attendance in segregated schools has intensified for Black students, while white and Asian attendance in these schools has been relatively stable and much lower than that of Black and Latino students. Whereas Black and Latino students disproportionately attend schools that have more than a 75% rate of poverty. Latino students increasingly attend these schools, their share up from 66% in 2014 to 73% in 2018, and Black students from 66% in 2014 to 71% in 2018. Whereas no other city has as many screened schools and programs as New York City public schools. Whereas during the pandemic, New York City's public school enrollment declined, driven by families leaving New York City. Rural and suburban areas saw population gains. Low-density localities tend to have school systems that admit resident students without screening. Families left for a variety of reasons, affordability of New York City seemingly a significant reason. Contrary to claims made by some families, there is no evidence that removing barriers to middle and high school admissions is a cause for families leaving New York City. The logic is particularly questionable, given that many families move to places that do not screen students for admission to public schools. Whereas a closer look at the data show that districts serving some of New York City's most vulnerable families posted steeper enrollment declines than wealthier districts. These students belong to the same groups proven to be disproportionately excluded by screened admissions, such as Black students and students from low-income households. Whereas when given the choice in fall of 2022, many middle school superintendents rejected a return to selective screening as it would hinder enrollment. Only 59 out of 196 middle schools reinstated their screens. Whereas families wishing to remain in or return to New York City may be discouraged by any new admissions changes designed to intensify the complexity of the process and the exclusivity of screened schools in the New York City public school system. Whereas New York City public high schools are schools of choice, and whereas New York State education law 2851 mandates that other schools of choice, known as charter schools, enroll through a lottery with enrollment targets for students with disabilities, multilingual learners, and students who qualify for free and reduced lunch, comparable to those of the community school district in which the school is located. Therefore, be it resolved that Chancellor David C. Banks and the New York City DOE uphold the admissions rules announced on September 29th, 2022 for this year's enrollment period commencing in fall of 2024 and conduct an impact analysis. Be it resolved that the New York City DOE partners with an independent organization to conduct an analysis of the effects of high school admissions changes made since 2020. Be it resolved that such an analysis include a survey of all current middle and high school students citywide in order to collect feedback on high school admissions before any new changes to the rules are considered or enacted. Be it resolved that the New York City DOE better support under-resourced students and families to navigate the high school admission process in accordance with the recommendations of New York Appleseed by investing in high school guidance through community-based organizations, after-school programs, school counselors, and making the high school admissions information available in print for those who lack digital access. And be it further resolved that any future changes are designed to improve the number of underserved, underrepresented, and under-resourced students admitted to screen schools.
Thank you so much. All right.
We're going to open it up for public comment to everyone on the Zoom. If you have a question, you can raise your hand or leave a comment in the chat. Okay. And our interpreters, anyone that you're working with has a question or comment?
I didn't hear anything on the Spanish line.
No response from Bangla line as well.
No from Mandarin line.
Thank you. Okay. All right, I'm going to open it up to CEC. Nancy? I don't know how. Okay. Donalda?
Yes, I have one comment, and that is that our public high school process in New York City is broken, and it needs to be completely rethought. And I can't vote for this resolution because I can in no way support the status quo. Thank you.
Me, I don't have a comment. Hans? Okay. Lauren?
Okay.
Mamoon?
No comments.
Danley?
No comment.
And Jonathan?
No comment.
Since Antonia, who authored it, cannot vote, I motion to table this resolution until the calendar meeting. So I have a second.
I second.
Now we vote. Now we vote on tabling the resolution.
Okay. Nancy?
Yes.
Donalda?
Yes.
Hans? Lauren?
Yes.
Mamoon?
Yes.
Danley?
Yes.
Jonathan?
Yes.
I forgot myself. Yes.
Okay, great. The motion is passive, the resolution is tabled. We will now postpone the vote until the calendar meeting. Okay, and now we have a final resolution on our agenda tonight. And it is the McKinney-Vento Act Amendment Proposal to NICEAD/State Legislature 2023.
Who proposes this resolution?
Camille.
I'm sorry.
Camille had presented it to us.
Okay. Thank you.
Do I have a volunteer to read?
Can read again.
You'll read again? Wow, okay.
Thanks, Lauren.
Yeah. Do my part. Resolution for New York State Education Department to adjust interpretation of the McKinney-Vento Homeless Education Act. Whereas nearly 80,000 New York students were homeless during the 2021-2022 school year, and the vast majority of those, more than 66,000, were in New York City. Whereas that number has increased dramatically in the last year. Whereas a homeless child means a child or youth who lacks a fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence, including a child who is, 1, sharing the housing of other persons due to a loss of housing, economic hardship, or a similar reason. 2, living in motels, hotels, trailer parks, or camping grounds due to the lack of alternative adequate accommodations. 3, living in emergency or transitional shelters. 4, abandoned in hospitals. 5, migratory child. 6, an unaccompanied youth, or B, a child or youth who has a primary nighttime location that is 1, a supervised, publicly or privately operated shelter designed to provide temporary living accommodations, including, but not limited to, shelters operated or approved by the state or local Department of Social Services, and residential programs for runaway and homeless youth. Or 2, a public or private place not designed for or ordinarily used as a regular sleeping accommodation for human beings, including a child or youth who is living in a car, park, public space, abandoned building, substandard housing, bus or train stations, or similar setting. Whereas Subtitle 7B of the McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act authorizes the Federal Education for Homeless Children and Youth program. It is the primary piece of federal legislation related to the education of children and youth experiencing homelessness. Whereas the McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act was reauthorized in December 2015 by Title IX Part A of the Every Student Succeeds Act. Whereas the New York City State Education Department interprets the federal law in the following way. The McKinney-Vento Act states that children and youth who lack a fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence will be considered homeless. McKinney-Vento eligible students have the right to 1, receive a free, appropriate public education, 2, enroll in school immediately, even if lacking documents normally required for enrollment, or having missed application or enrollment deadlines during any period of homelessness. 3, enroll in school and attend classes while the school gathers needed documents. 4, continue attending the school of origin or enroll in the local attendance area school if attending the school of origin is not in the best interest of the student or is contrary to the request of the parent, guardian, or unaccompanied youth. 5, receive transportation to and from the school of origin if requested by the parent or guardian or by the local liaison on behalf of an unaccompanied youth. And 6, receive educational services comparable to those provided to other students according to each student's need. Whereas amendments to New York City State Education Department's interpretation of McKinney-Vento must be considered to account for the expanding need of support and services for students living in temporary housing. Whereas in number 4, the local attendance area school is the school that is zoned for the homeless shelter. Whereas connecting a shelter to a specific school zone causes a concentration of high-need students in a single school and segregates children experiencing the trauma of homelessness. Whereas an amendment number 4 can include the additional option of enrollment in a school of choice within the school district or town. Whereas in New York City, many middle schools and all high schools are unzoned. Whereas specifically for New York City, the language in the state law must be clarified that a student may choose to attend any school within the school community district or borough. Whereas number 6 assumes that the need of the child who is homeless would equal the need of any other child in comparable educational services. Whereas the need of the homeless child is greater due to the trauma that they face, and this should be acknowledged. Whereas the New York City Public Advocate addressed the need to support asylum seekers in our schools with language accessible programming and highlighted the need to support holistic school safety efforts rather than relying solely on law enforcement solutions. Therefore, be it resolved that New York State and New York City electeds increase financial support to local school districts in order to provide more services and resources to students living in temporary housing in coordination with Office of Pupil Transportation, other social service agencies tasked with serving students in temporary housing, and be it resolved that New York State Education Department will clarify the language in the Commissioner's Regulation Part 100.2 X16 9, that a student can attend any school within the community school district. And be it further resolved that the DOE will allow students living in temporary housing to enroll in their school of choice and ensure that families are aware of their rights to attend the schools of their choice.
Okay. Right, we're gonna open up to all of our, everyone attending on Zoom. If you have a question or comment, you can raise your hand or leave a comment in the chat. Okay. I'm going to ask all of our interpreters, if you have anyone that has a question or a comment. You can raise your hand or leave a comment in the chat.
No questions
Hi.
on the Mandarin line, thank you.
No questions in Bengali line.
No questions in the Spanish line too?
Thank you. Okay, and now open up to the council members, Nancy Randall.
To now that's who where this came from, Camille Casario, former president, wrote this resolution, and I think it's a really important resolution. With that said, if it's, I want to, obviously, I want you to have the freedom to comment. Since we're just reading this for the first time tonight, and I don't know if you all have had the time to read it previously, I'm happy to also have a motion to table this so that we don't vote tonight, just so you all know. It's usually ideal if we do have 2 meetings to be able to have more time with a resolution. But with that said, I think this is a really important resolution, and I'm very grateful to her for putting this together.
Was that a motion to?
No, that's the end of my comments.
Oh, okay. Donalda.
I am very grateful for this resolution and I'm delighted to see it. I would like a little bit more time because there's a chancellor's regulation about dealing with students' temporary housing and their rights in our own system that I just want to crosswalk for myself. But my main concern about our migrant students being essentially segregated in certain high poverty schools in our district would be alleviated if this policy were to be adopted and practiced. And so that is a huge, would be a huge victory. But of course, the policy adoption is the first step. And putting it into practice is something we all dream of, I hope. So thank you, Camille and Nancy and everyone else.
Okay. I have no comment. Hans. Okay. Lauren.
I just want to second what's been said. I think it's really important. I think it alleviates a lot of other issues that we're facing. And I think that this piece around coordinating with multiple agencies is really important to really tease out when we're getting to the final resolution. Specifically thinking about OPT and if providing school choice universally, which I think is amazing, making sure that we have the infrastructure to get students to the schools with their families and children.
Mamoon.
It's so nice to see these things, and I agree with another thing, like we need to have the practice, this one, so then it will come day by day better and better.
Danley. Okay, and Jonathan.
Just that I think it's a wonderful and much needed resolution that hopefully we can pass and figure out how to actually put it into practice so that it's not just a policy that's out there for us to pat our backs on, but it can have some real teeth and make a real difference.
Thank you. Nancy.
Okay, so I will motion to table this resolution. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, and so now we are voting on whether we will table this resolution until the calendar meeting, and we will then vote at the calendar meeting. Okay, so now I will call the roll. I vote yes to tabling the motion, to the resolution. Donalda?
Yes.
Leslie?
Yes.
Hans?
Yes.
Lauren?
Yes.
Mamoon?
Yes.
Stanley? Jonathan?
Yes.
Okay, great. The motion to table the resolution has passed. The resolution will be read and voted on at the calendar meeting. Okay, and now I turn it to Donalda for the treasurer's report.
Oh, how exciting. So, everyone, right, exactly. Everyone, we had an executive session last business meeting, where we discussed, our particular supplement. And all noted that it will move forward as per our 2023-24 budget resolution flyer that you see here. I believe that our next act is to vote on this budget at some point to adopt it as a council and move forward with it. Is that right?
Yes, but we have voted on it.
Okay.
So this is the budget that we're operating off
Okay.
right now. But we can make amendments to it through, I believe it's February. Shanice, is that right?
Yes.
Yes. So, sorry, we were, yes. So, there's, as you will see at the bottom of your packet, there is, thank you so much, Shanice, for doing this. There is this information on
As a vendor.
language. Huh?
As a vendor.
Yeah, there's this information on language, interpretation costs. So if there is an amendment that we would want to make, it would be based off how much it would cost to have an interpreter and if we want to have an interpreter. But I guess this is the first part, is knowing how much interpreters cost. So tonight we did have the district office coordinated with Principal Gonzalez of yes, 94. That's 94.
No.
Yes.
Oh, I get all my
Yes,
fours.
you're right.
Like if it PS 94, 124, or
Yes,
24. There's a
94 is
four.
right.
I
Yes,
forget which
yes.
four it is. So thank you so much, Principal Gonzalez. She sent a wonderful teacher to be our interpreter. It turned out that we did not need her tonight. So I would say this isn't yet resolved, right? So we need to know, A, if we are going to actually need language interpretation in person. And secondly, what is the cost of doing so for however many meetings we have left? So I think this is something that we can look at offline. And then if we do need to amend it, we do have time in order to make this amendment.
Then the only last thing I'd share around treasury type stuff is these reports for, the itemized expenditures. If we could coordinate that, if people want to be reimbursed, could they submit that to us on the night of the business meeting?
Yeah.
And then we can do our signature stuff and then put it in the hopper. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Great. Awesome. Great.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. So that's all I have.
I don't know if you don't, I sign everybody else's. You actually don't, it doesn't even.
You don't want me to process any paperwork for you or anything?
No.
Okay.
No, I mean, it goes straight. I get it and I give it to Shanice, basically. You process my paperwork.
Okay.
Yes, I want you to process
All right.
paperwork for me
Getting
specifically.
better and better.
For me.
Yes. All right.
But yes, that's exactly the ideal flow.
Okay.
Is
So
from
nights of
one
business
meeting.
meetings bring the thing.
Yeah,
We
or
give
it's
it
just
to you.
one meeting to the next,
Okay.
like that being the flow would be
All right.
ideal.
We collect both of these.
I believe so, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you need to.
Okay, great.
Thanks,
If
everyone.
you need to.
Does anybody have any old business? Yes.
I just had, I don't know if it's old business or new business, but I know the last calendar meeting, we did not get to a lot of things because the presentations took a very long time, so.
It was the resolutions.
Right, so we just tabled 2 resolutions, and so my
Oh,
concern
good
is
point.
that we move to the next, like, I feel like Camille's resolution in particular, if we could get that rolling sooner, and just wanted to voice before the next calendar meeting a way to maybe think about making sure that we have enough time to truly get to the resolutions and vote on them before we're kicked out of the school.
Got it. I think that that's a great point. One thing that is always helpful is if, obviously tonight we read the resolution, is always if you can read resolutions in advance. So the other resolutions that are on that, do we currently have other resolutions on that agenda? No, we
No.
don't. No, we don't. Okay, good. So, and I mean, unless somebody comes with a resolution the next few days, I don't imagine we'll have additional resolutions. So if we don't have additional resolutions, then really just, if you could reread the resolution or just make your, set your opinions about the resolution so that you're able to vote, basically. Does that make sense? Yeah.
100%.
Okay.
I just wanted to say that out loud.
No,
so
I appreciate that.
We
Yeah.
didn't get to the resolutions last meeting.
Yeah.
Just
That's gonna
don't want
happen.
them to keep getting pushed.
Yeah. Okay, does anybody have new business? Would you like, even Patience, would you like to?
Well, yes, one minute.
Yeah. You gotta sit up by the microphone.
Of course.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, of
Yeah.
course.
And here.
Hello, everybody. My name is Amir. I am a children's book author, and I do readings within these school districts within the New York City area. And the book that I created actually helps children with dyslexia learn how to read at a faster rate using augmented reality. So I'll show you this.
That's amazing.
It's gonna have some sound to it. Oh, it's because my phone goes out. So as they flip the page, it does the audio for them and shows them a animation for them to see while they read it.
Can I ask you a favor? Can you do it so they can see
Oh.
online?
That's so cool.
Did it a lot. He didn't know why. Lion of the lion loved to lie. He did it a lot. He didn't know why. Lion of the lion.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
That was good.
Yeah.
So do you have any more to share? Have you done this in District 15 schools? Or
No,
like,
I have
what's the
not
deal?
done this in District 15 schools yet.
Okay.
My mother used to be actually a president over in District 16, many years ago, when I was a kid.
Oh.
And I grew up with dyslexia, so I wanted to create a product that actually helps children with their reading. And it was a very big passion of mine to utilize the things that help me, like audio and visuals, and try to implement it to the kids today with new technology.
That's so cool. That's amazing. Can I see the cover here? I'm gonna put your info in here. So.
Of course, and I can give you guys my card, so you can put the website as well as my email in the chat.
Thank you.
That's so cool. Thank you.
Thank you, Amir, so much.
Sweet.
All right, does anybody have any additional new business? Oh, okay. Antonia mentioned, Donalda, if you cross-reference the chancellor's regulation regarding students in temporary housing, you can suggest modifications to the resolution before next Tuesday.
Okay.
And then we could quickly vote on those modifications.
I would like to say that knowing Camille, it has already been done and it was thoroughly crosswalked. But I will still be neurotic enough to do it. And I thank you, Antonia. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. All right, everybody, at 8:26 PM, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Oh, do you have another?
I move to adjourn.
Thank you.
Jonathan, motion to adjourn. Lauren seconded. I call this meeting to an end at 8:26 PM. Thank you so much, everyone. We will see you on October 24th at PS 15. Please join us.
Started on time and got out early.
I think that's actually the last meeting, we didn't have quorum and I was waiting for us to have quorum before I got started. And I think.
Hi, interpretation.
I mean, it was
You are
great.
dismissed. Thank you so much.
Really long. Like.
Have a good evening. Bye, Antonia. See you tomorrow.
Yeah, I only